Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, July 30th, 2026 edition of Douglas Now Live. I'm Robert Preston Jr. in the Douglas Now Live studios on West Walker Street. Rough day today at the Preston household, folks. Rough day. It's been rough all week. We've mentioned this a little bit, but teachers went back to school this week. Today's open house. And pre-planning is one thing. Open house is a little bit different. When we get into open house, there's no question that the school year is here. Now you get to meet the kids and the parents, and everything starts falling into place for the first day of school, which is of course next week. So, it's been rough. And if you have a teacher in your family, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a rough week, but again, the school year is going to be back in next week. So sort of a foreshadowing for what is to come. Everybody, give yourself a few extra minutes to get to where you're going next week, particularly if you have to travel that 206 connector corridor between Highway 441 and Highway 221. You know what is out there. The quagmire that is Coffee Middle School. After a couple of days, it backs off a little bit. It's not quite as bad, but when school does start back next week, go ahead. If you're not going to the middle school, avoid the area. However far you have to go around to avoid that area, it will be quicker than sitting in that traffic. It'll be backed up from the middle school to the red light on 441 and beyond, and probably almost all the way back to 221, at least for a couple of days. You'll want to stay out of there as much as possible. A couple of things I want to talk about real quickly. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time here, but a few things I would like to get to today. First of all, story we published this morning, and I knew it was going to generate a lot of comments, most of which would be negative. And when I say negative, they would be negative towards me. Okay. Now, what people need to realize here is that when we write crime stories, we're not necessarily saying that we agree or disagree with the arrest, that we think it's a good idea, that it's even a legal or lawful arrest, because sometimes there are arrests that get made, charges get dropped, find out, that should have been handled a little bit differently. And a lot of times publicizing what people get arrested for is where that discussion begins. Okay. And I did a story this morning. It was a woman here from Douglas, Candace Sims Hardy, was arrested and charged with terroristic threats and acts. She was taken to the Coffee County Jail, given a property bond. As of this morning, she was still in jail. The incident in question happened on July 21st. All right, so it's been, 9-10 days since this incident happened. And what Miss Hardy was doing, according to the incident report, walking around the neighborhood at night, threatening people, telling people she's going to kill them in various ways, some rather brutally. What led to the call that ended up with Miss Hardy being in jail, being put in jail, was a neighbor was backing out of the driveway and she was in the way and she wouldn't move. And you get into a pretty sticky situation if you go try to move them. All right. Now, everybody knows that there are mental health issues here with Miss Hardy. Okay. Called 911. Law enforcement came, arrested her, took her to jail. Again, she's been given a bond, $5,500 property bond, but she's still in jail. Now, I knew that story would open up the floodgates, if you will, with a discussion regarding arresting folks versus handling that a different way. And there are several different resources that law enforcement officers have at their disposal. Some are better than others. All right. But a lot of times what happens when you're on the street, when you're in the middle of a situation, you don't always have time to enact those resources or to put them into play. And it's a very difficult situation. All right. And one of the reasons I did this story was to open up a discussion about this, because there's got to be a better way. And look, I know a lot of the arrest stories that we do come back to mental health issues. Now, some are mental health issues caused by substance abuse. Others are mental health issues that are made worse by substance abuse. All right. But the mental health discussion is one that is certainly more out in the open than it used to be. And what people have worked very hard to do is try to erase the stigma that comes with having some type of mental health issue. Because I'll be 54 years old in a few months, so I've been around a while. And when I was growing up, you didn't talk about these kinds of things, whether you were a child or whether you were an adult. Mental health issues, disabilities, things like that, you didn't talk about them. All right. But we know that a lot of the folks who get arrested and get in trouble have mental health issues. Now, that brings it back. So what do you do to alleviate that? All right. And a lot of times what happens is that folks take their medication and they take it the way they're supposed to, and then they get to feeling better. I don't like to use this word, but normal. Then they feel like they don't need their medication. Then they quit taking it, and then they begin to spiral back into the dangerous behaviors that they exhibit when they're not taking their medication. So what do you do? All right. The state mental health hospital in Milledgeville is closed. Most hospitals, most facilities like that around the country have been closed in favor of medication. And medication works when people take it. When they don't, you end up in a very difficult situation. Now, let's play devil's advocate here. In this situation with Miss Hardy, the neighbors know that she has mental health issues. They know that she's not being serious, more than likely, when she is making threats against them. But not all threats made during a mental health crisis are idle threats. There are plenty of instances where people will make these types of threats and make these types of statements and then act on them. All right. So you end up in kind of a difficult situation. You know that more than likely there's probably nothing to this, but then those two enormous words, what if? What if she did harm someone, or another individual in a similar situation harmed someone? At that point, people are going to say, well, she's been out here walking up and down the sidewalk for 2 months threatening people. You knew that something could happen and you didn't act on it. So what needs to happen is there needs to be more mental health resources. And when I say mental health resources, real resources. Now, how do you do that? I do not know. I do not know. What you will hear politicians say, we don't want to be in the mental health business. We want private physicians, private clinics, private providers to handle that. Well, here's the deal. The state is in the mental health business anyway. We're talking about something that happened here at the county level, but a lot of inmates in the state prisons are there because of mental health issues. A lot of the inmates in county jails are there because of mental health issues. So the government, be it city, state, county, or federal, is in the mental health business anyway. So what we need to do is to figure out a way where there is a viable option for Miss Hardy. Now, listen, I printed a picture. I'm not going to put her mugshot up here. Okay. I'm not going to do that. All right. I'm sitting here looking at the story on my computer right now, but we need to have at some point, we need to have a real discussion that leads to a real solution. Now, we have real discussions now, but nothing ever comes from it. Okay. Nothing ever comes from it. I don't know what it would take to do that. I don't know what steps we need to enact that would put some teeth into some of this stuff. And let's really try to solve the problems that these counties are facing. Because listen, local law enforcement, I'm not talking about just here in Coffee County, whether it's Atkinson County or Bacon County, Irwin, Ben Hill, Telfair, Lawrence, wherever, all the way up to the metro areas, they're all dealing with the same issues. So yeah, there were some pretty harsh comments on us about this story. And once again, when we write stories, we're not saying necessarily that we agree or disagree. We're simply saying that this is happening. And what this does is it gives us an opportunity to talk about it. Because if you don't do the story, you don't know this is happening. All right. You don't know her story. You don't know that she's sitting in jail right now with a bond that has not been signed. And I want to take a look here, because the Sheriff's Department app, you can check the jail roster. So I want to look while we're talking here and see if in fact she is in fact still in jail. All right. Booked into jail on July 20th at 10:44 p.m. has been in jail ever since, and does in fact have a $5,500 property bond. So the idea was not to glorify this arrest or to even pat anyone on the back, but to just say this is a mental health issue. This happens every day. If it hasn't happened today, it will happen tonight. And at some point, our leaders need to have a discussion, a real discussion about this. There's two things I'd like to see. I'd like to see this kind of stuff stop. All right. I'd like to see people who need help get help other than being put into a jail cell. I would also like to see some type of prison reform. All right. There's got to be some prison. And I'm not going to sit before you and act like I'm smart enough to figure it out. But you look at the Georgia Department of Corrections, and there are problems. There are big problems. All right. How do you solve those problems? I do not know. I do not know. But you have as much crime and as many criminal enterprises operating in our prison system as you do outside of our prison system. All right. Something's not right. All right. There are people on a weekly basis who die violent deaths under the care of the Georgia Department of Corrections. All right. And we've seen some instances even right here in our area, not necessarily in our county, but in our area in Southeast Georgia, where we have seen some very, very bad actors in the Department of Corrections system. All right. I don't know how you fix it, but it certainly needs to be fixed. And I know when Judge Gillis ran his Senate campaign, one of his big platforms, and it really it was really interesting to hear him talk about it. And maybe we need to get him on here one day and let him go over it with us, because it was phenomenal. But he is a big advocate for criminal justice reform. He has seen the strengths and the weaknesses of the criminal justice system, for his 25 or so years on the bench, right? And the repeat offenders, the ones who come in who are just recycled through the system over and over and over again. So there's a lot of discussions that need to be had. But the purpose of putting this story out here was not necessarily to say it was a good arrest, or even necessarily that it was a bad arrest, but the reason why the arrest happened and what we need to do to keep arrests like this from happening. Because she does not need to be in jail. She needs to be somewhere getting treatment. Now, with the limited options and resources that we have right now, at the moment, being in jail might be the best option, because she's not a danger to herself. She's not a danger so much to others. She has supervision. She has prescription medication. She has people who will make sure she takes her medication. So I don't want to necessarily say positives, but there are some potentially favorable outcomes that happen from this. But again, it leads to a greater discussion. But we don't need to just sit around and talk about it for the sake of talking about it. We need to come up with something that truly leads to some type of reform and options that local authorities have to handle these kinds of situations better and more efficiently. All right? Because I don't like to see people become criminals who aren't criminals. And sometimes that happens. So yeah, there are a lot of discussions that need to be had. There are a lot of reforms that need to be made. And I don't like seeing this stuff. I don't like seeing it. But if you don't know it's happening, then you don't know to talk about it. So maybe it will lead to some type of change. I think it's still a long way off, but maybe it will. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk about lost shoes. When someone is injured in an accident, they need three things: answers, a plan, and a legal team they can trust. That's what you get at the law office of Bruce Edwards in Douglas, along with a healthy dose of old school toughness and modern strategy to boot. We are here to help. Give us a call and let us work for you. Looking for design, printing, or shipping solutions? Stop by PostNet in Douglas or Waycross today. From business cards to signs and all small business and personal print projects in between, we've got your back with our full-service printing capabilities. We offer custom packing and shipping options through UPS, FedEx, and the U.S. Postal Service, so you can always choose what works best for you. Welcome back. Let me grab my photo here that fell off the desk. Yesterday, I did something I don't normally do. All right? Now, and let me explain this. I don't do a lot of announcements, lost pets, things like that, right? Because we are a news site, not necessarily a community bulletin board. And I don't want to get bogged down with community bulletin board material. Now, we do community announcements, and we will publicize events and things like that. And it may seem sort of arbitrary sometimes how I decide to do some of the things that we do with Douglas Now, but I try to make sure that the first and foremost, we stay true to our original format, which is, in fact, to bring news. Someone sent me an email yesterday, and for whatever reason, it struck me. And I said, you know what? This is a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but we have a pretty large network, and this is what we're going to do. All right. I'm going to make this announcement. And what you see here is one shoe of two. A mother sent me an email and said that she had taken her son back to school shopping at Marshall's. She bought this pair of shoes, and on the way to the car, her child, as children are sometimes wont to do, lost the other shoe. So she gets home and she's only got one shoe. Now, shoes are expensive. Back to school clothes, expensive. So she sent me an email and asked me if I would publicize the fact that the shoe was dropped in the Marshall's parking lot between Marshall's and Five Below. And if anyone had any information who, or had the shoe, would return it. So I did the announcement for two reasons. First of all, I really didn't think anybody's going to come forward with the shoe. Why would somebody pick up one shoe? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with one shoe? Right? But it was a new shoe. I don't know. Maybe they thought if somebody lost one, they might have, lose the other one somewhere in the parking lot. Or that somebody would step forward and buy another pair of shoes. That's what I figured the most likely outcome was, is people are going to see this and they're going to contact this mother, and she's going to end up with a pair of shoes for her child back to school one way or the other. Because in spite of what people like to say about Coffee County, we are very much a generous people, and we try to look after each other, and we will take care of each other. All right. So I knew one way or the other, this young man was going to end up with a pair of shoes. It wasn't out there 10 minutes after I made the post that someone sent me a text and said, listen, if they don't find the shoe, you let me know and I'll buy them a pair of shoes. Then I get into the comments and it's just, comment after comment after comment. We'll buy the shoes. We'll do this. You let me know. And I said, they're going to end up with more shoes. They'll have a pair. That young man will have a pair of shoes to wear every day for a month and never wear the same ones. But someone found the shoe. Someone had found the shoe and came forward and said that they would get together and return the shoe. So the idea worked. And there are a lot of really bad things that happen online, a lot of really, really, really bad things. And we read those stories all the time. We cover some of those here on Douglas Now. But there are also times when the internet is a peaceful place, and where people's generosity and benevolence are often on display. And that's what happened here. So once again, to everyone who commented, to everyone who made the offer to buy the shoes, to buy another pair of shoes, thank you very much. To the person who had the shoe and came forward to return it, thank you as well. Now, what I would leave you with is this. Remember that spirit of generosity and pay this forward. If you see someone who you know is in need, reach out and help them. Yes, there are people who take advantage of the generosity of others. We see that everywhere. But that's between them and the Lord, all right? If you see someone in need who appears to be in need, do something nice for them. Whatever they need that you can meet, help them out. If they're taking advantage of you, that'll work itself out down the road. That's not for you to decide. It's not for me to decide. All right? We take care of each other. We look after each other. And we make sure that those who might not have what we have do, in fact, have what they need, particularly right here with school. And you know how it is. You know how you feel when you walk. Listen, I don't care how old you are. Getting a new pair of shoes is fun. I can only imagine the disappointment that this young man felt. That's a good-looking pair of shoes. He's thinking about wearing those on the first day of school, and he gets home, he's only got one. All right? That's not something a child should have to deal with. Shouldn't have to worry about that. All right? So that kind of tugged at me a little bit. And look, I was willing to buy a pair of shoes too. I was sitting there thinking about it. If nothing comes from this, if we get 2 comments and nobody says anything, I'm going to go buy the shoes. But let's see if we can find the shoe. Let's see if somebody will come forward. Let's see if social media will work for the greater good. And it did. So when I get aggravated and get irritated about how things work online, something like this happens that restores my faith in our community and in my fellow man. It's good to see that at the end of the day, we will in fact take care of each other. We do care about each other, and we want to make sure that people have what they need. So thank you very much to all who responded. And again, remember this: there are others who might need something that we could provide. something that we could help out with, whatever that may be. So let's not forget that as we move forward into the school year. We're going to take a look at our tower cam in just a second. But first, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. A car accident can have serious consequences far beyond the initial crash. Your life and the lives of your loved ones can be turned upside down. Missed work, lost wages, totaled vehicles, and insurance companies that don't want to help. You need a law firm that will fight for you. You've come to the right place. Looking for design, printing, or shipping solutions? Stop by PostNet in Douglas or Waycross today. From business cards to signs and all small business and personal print projects in between, we've got your back with our full-service printing capabilities. We offer custom packing and shipping options through UPS, FedEx, and the U.S. Postal Service, so you can always choose what works best for you. Welcome back. Robert Preston Jr. here on the Thursday edition of Douglas Now Live. Let's take a look at our tower cam. Again, we were on here a little earlier this week, and we were able to see this beautiful view with, of course, the tower lines. You can see the tower cables out here outside of town. But other than that, it is a very nice view to the east of us. Hot outside. Extremely hot. It's been dangerously hot this week. It will continue to be hot through the weekend. Might get a little bit of rain this weekend. So I know when you go to school, we're going back to school. Nobody wants the last weekend of school to be one where you're inside in the rain and what have you. So because of the rain. So yeah, may not be a great weekend before we go back to school. But again, we just saw a bird fly through. How about that? That's one of the neat things about doing the tower cam during the day. You get to see things like that. Looks like a butterfly up there fluttering around. I still want to see a deer. If you look down there in the corner of your screen, there are deer and turkeys, bobcats, raccoons, what have you, that walk through there at all times. And we've actually pulled up here in the parking lot before and had to dodge 5 turkeys before. And we used to have a nice little family of raccoons hanging around as well. So, but yeah, that's what it looks like today. It's a beautiful day, clear skies, extremely hot. Even though it's 5:22 right now, it's still hot, and it's going to be hot until the sun goes down. Look at there. It's not much, but it is a little fun to see something out there moving around besides just the cables coming off the tower. So anyway, everybody stay safe. Be diligent. Enjoy this weekend. The last weekend before we go back to school. Teachers, administrators, bus drivers, support staff at the school, the custodial staff, and what have you. You are in our thoughts and prayers this weekend, especially the bus drivers. All right. Listen, there are a lot of tough jobs in the world. All right. Being a bus driver, my heart goes out to you. It really does. That's not something I would want to do at all. So we could not have school without you. We commend you for the work that you do, your patience, your long-sufferingness, because it is a difficult job. Thank you for what you do. Thank all of our school staff for what you do. We're praying for you. Seriously, all jokes aside, we are all of our school system employees, all of the cogs in the public education wheel will be in our thoughts and prayers this weekend. Y'all have a great one. We'll see you next time.